I'm delighted to welcome our second feature of the evening, Carolyne Wright. Carolyne's latest books are Masquerade, a memoir and poetry from Lost Horse Press 2021, and This Dream the World, new and selected poems, also from Lost Horse in 2017, whose title poem received a Pushcart Prize and appeared in the Best American Poetry 2009. Carolyne's anthology, Raising Lily Ledbetter, Women Poets Occupy the Workspace, also from Lost Horse 2015, received 10 Pushcart Prize nominations. A Seattle native who has lived and taught all over the country, and through fellowships in Chile, Brazil, India, and Bangladesh, she has 16 earlier books and anthologies of poetry, essays, and translation. Carolyne is a contributing editor for the Pushcart Prizes and has received NEA and 4 Culture grants, as well as a Fulbright Scholar Award, which will take her back to Bahia, Brazil, post-COVID-19. Please put your hands together for Carolyne Wright.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. It's wonderful to read for the Rivertown poets. Thanks so much for inviting us, Sandy, and thank you, Karen, for being the first reader. I was very inspired. In fact, I even changed one of my selections. So I'm also going to read about 8 poems. I may cut one if it turns out to be a bit long. But first, I want to say that I am coming to you from North Seattle, which is the unacknowledged but still very much part of the Duwamish people's ancestral land and territory. So I am here coming from there in North Seattle. I'm going to start. My new book is called Masquerade. I'm holding it up here. It is, the cover is extremely eye-catching. It is, thank you, what was it, Adobe stock photos, but it's sort of like Fillmore West meets Mardi Gras or Carnival in New Orleans. And since much of this book is set in New Orleans, I'm going to focus on poems, basically some of the poems set in New Orleans. And of course, there's some references to Mardi Gras, and as you'll see, what else was I going to say about that? You'll see. And I was inspired by your reading a number of poems in form, Karen. So this book has a number of poems in form as well, and I'll let you know what they are as they come up. The first poem I'm going to read is called Foburg Marigny. It's a neighborhood in New Orleans, just outside of the French Quarter. Foburg Marigny. We live on Royal between piety and desire. The old slave quarters, shotgun houses with barred windows, antiqued bronze plaques, and rows of mailboxes by the door. Their decor, chic macabre. The planter's mad widow bursting into flame, a house full of servants going down like Moses in their chains. The river at the end of the street, not Samuel Clemens' steamboat road across the color line. Below sea level, houses of the dead float on their pilings. We stare at the masts of freighters riding at anchor above the trees. Garçonnier, the dropped roof, rooms just wide enough to show us what isn't ours. Riot lights at dusk shine on the bellies of nighthawks, and in boarded up houses, ghost laughter echoes down airless halls. Someone plays gospel in the street after the bars close, his voice rising above Blue Mitchell on the stereo. The last bus rattles by. The sign on the front reads, Desire, Florida. A sneaky way to say, Get out of town. We don't like your kind. The words of the mean sheriff in the movies reminding us we'll always be strangers here. We dream of springs 100 miles inland. Every night, barge whistles sound the old imperatives. Underground rivers play the lethal blues of whirlpools. The city turns slowly on the current as we sleep. Okay. If it's not clear yet, this book is sort of a memoir in poetry that deals with an interracial relationship between two artists and poets and writers in racist America. And so you'll hear some of that resonance in this work. The next poem, which I actually haven't read this aloud for a long time, it's the title poem. It's called Masquerade. And you'll see it's taking place during Mardi Gras. She's gone again in the Mardi Gras parade, and you're home, killing time on the front steps, examining the beer can in your hands. Apotheosis of nothing. What she throws at you this time hardly worth the sequined stars in her garter. You know how it is, bright lights, music, how they told us for years we could be anything. Now what? The one thing we've turned out to be hangs on day after day. It's not easy the way the body breaks, ages into pinwheels, while under the grandstand, dogs in desire's hammerlock and wishes a dime a dozen. Out there, it's a gala evening of lost chances. Momus Rex rides by on his Palomino with $1 million smile. Windfall profits pile up when he tips his hat and the crowd goes wild. She dances away from you, face gleaming through royal blue plumes. Honey, we're known by our disguises. Streets where she two-timed you cordoned off. What did you want from her anyway? Wind chimes on the porch? Fresh figs in the morning? Cinema verite with its long leader? She's buying tickets to cities where poets die like lovers in the tarot deck, where refugees give up waiting for the mail and high priests are cutting out every reference to blood. At night, you hear her strum her 12-string, hum in languages she doesn't understand. Going back to all her dropped stitches, she could be one of the children poking through the drainage grate for coins, calling up ghosts in jump rope rhymes she's memorized in her sleep. Old eucalyptus knives, handkerchief dancers, cane flute countries whose copper-eyed women wail and beat the medicine drums in the middle of your fields. Here she comes. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to stay on the theme of sort of incantatory music. There's a club, I'm not sure it still exists in New Orleans, called the Blue Room. And back in the day when I was living there with this poet, we would go there on occasion. I was very good in those days with that. What did we have? We had the telephone with the, you pick up the receiver and it's got the curly leash on it, and you dial the dial, shoo, shoo. So I got really good at that. I was really good at dialing. I had a mean right index finger to be the second caller and win the pair of free tickets to shows at the Blue Room. So we managed to go a few times to shows at the Blue Room. And this one time, it was Betty Carter at the Blue Room. What a little moonlight can do, she croons, leaning into the indigo spotlight, her dress a shimmer against the sequined backdrop, her vocalese an alto sax's reed flutter. She breaks into scat syllabics, working the room as if she can't help herself, notes soaring off into tremolo no one can sidestep. We sit with our mixed drinks, holding hands in a Berylline penumbra, just below the stage where we could live by our own rules. Your dark profile limned against midnight, eclipsing my lunar skin. She glides across velvet draperies, bends her head back in the beaded glow, eyes half closed like a woman gone into ancestral trance, feather notes fingered in melancholy's slow caress. My one and only love. This is our blue period, free passes and one drink per set, the linen draped table where we linger till closing, glancing into each other's eyes as if to surprise ourselves. What doors does she open as she sidles between her side men, reshaping love's old standards in a slow dissolve, subverting the after glimmer? Everything she has is ours, the room behind us, shadow light, and nobody's business that we're here. No other lovers between us. We walk home from Canal Street to save on car fare and third-degree stares, burning through nights that almost keep their promises. Sublunar murmurs long past denying, refrain of our presence, coda and reprise, the city's scrim curtain of invisible stars. You unlock our cobalt shuttered door on Royal Street, memories oblique interstices, and we slip into each other's arms. Let a little moonlight have its way with us. Thank you. I think it must be, I'm sure you've all had the experience of moving to a place where, you know, you're young, you don't have a whole lot of money, a whole lot of savings, and you're just taking this chance, moving to a place with no job, and, you know, let's see how it works out. And so that was sort of the situation. These poems are sort of fraught with that tension. And I'm going to read the one that is on Karen Alinier's webpage right now. I'm very honored that I am the guest artist this month on her website. So Karen, you might want to post that link. But this is the poem that's there. It's called One Afternoon on Royal Street. And of course, where we were living was indeed on Royal Street. And this is after Kelly Cherry, who wrote this wonderful poem. You'll hear the repetition in it. I don't know exactly what form it is, but she wrote it. It was sort of like after, I think she was writing it after Czesław Miłosz. And so this is after her. So there's a whole lineage here. It's called One Afternoon on Royal Street. You are reading Le Nègre. I am writing to César. The sun gleams like a gold doubloon over the levee and the early winter bloom of camellias, the blue flame trembling in the wall heater. Sun is blooming with a cool flame, and you are talking over César and the early news. I am writing, and camellias are listening past you to the voice of César blooming like a dark sun. Your voice is a blue flame gleaming on the pages of Le Nègre. The levees are trembling winter's darkest gold. Listen, I am talking to you. Those levees, they were there holding back the river. This was before Hurricane Katrina. Okay, I am going to go to, yes, indeed, we have some, thank you for reading Triolays, Karen, because I have, there's 2 sets of Triolays in this book. I'm not going to read the first set. I'm going to the second, which is a set of 3 Triolays, and they're called Blue Triolays. And they are, it's sort of an homage to a number of jazz musicians whom we heard at that time, mainly in New Orleans, but there's a couple of references to shows that took place elsewhere, like New York and Seattle. So the series is called Blue Triolays. And the first one, Bright Moments with the Blues and You. Ellis Marsalis on piano every week at Snug Harbor. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers at the Village Gate. One hot night at the Cookery, Alberta Turner. Ellis playing Syndrome at Snug Harbor. Miles turning his back on everyone in the arena. Terence Blanchard's first solo at the Village Gate. Ellis ending his set with Z Blues at Snug Harbor. Sarah Vaughan's So Danço Samba at the Village Gate. I love that. So danço samba, so danço samba, vai, 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 vai. That's not part of the poem, but I can't help it. House of Blue Lights is the second one. We were writing a book on the blues together. We sat at jazz club tables with the candles lit. We studied chord changes and the devil's measure. Such big plans. Our book on the blues together. On Desire Street, we heard the devil's engines backfire. Aphrodite shimmered on stage in an indigo light. We did our best with that book on the blues together. We stood up from that table, blew the candles out. And the third one goes back to the blue room for a minute here. So much love and trouble in that room, where an Aphrodite shimmied between tables in indigo light. And the Devil's Dance Band struck up a bluesy tune. So many hopes ran into trouble in that room. Miss Mouth, you used to call me, Lighthouse Grin. You weren't trying to change me, not those nights. So much love and trouble in that room, where Aphrodite shimmered between us in indigo light. And let's see, how am I doing on time? I think I'm going to read 2 more. One of them is, let's see, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to, another poem that is a tribute to another club in New Orleans, in the Maple Leaf Bar, which was in a different neighborhood, I think in Carrollton. And it was a wonderful place. It had music, it had dancing. I remember a couple of Zydeco dancing things I attended there with Lee Grew, who was the great doyen of the New Orleans Poetry Forum. And she and I we danced together, we had fun. But there was a reading series that was held there on Sunday afternoons, hosted by this amazing man named Everett Maddox, who was sort of a Southern gentleman type with, he always wore a kind of a white linen suit. And he had fame briefly for a poem of his, an early poem of his that was published in The New Yorker, called Umpteen Ways of Looking at an Opossum. And so, but he was a man he was a troubled man, a poète maudit. He he ultimately drank himself to death. And if you went up and gave him a hug, which you could do back then, you could feel almost nothing there but these bony shoulders. And so there was an anthology put out a number of years ago called Umpteen Ways of Looking for a Possum, and edited by some poets who were from New Orleans in those days. And I was invited to submit to it. And all I had at the time was the title. So then I had to write the poem. and I think you'll recognize everything. Oh, one other thing. I'm still mistaken for C.D. Wright at times. So all I had was this title, and then I had to write the poem. It's called On Learning That I'm Not C.D. Wright, Couple Walks Out of Maple Leaf Bar. The Dirty Dozen brass band was second lining on the PA system, a direct feed from WWOZ's command post above Tipitina's uptown. At the Leaf, Poets was gathering in a slow swirl. Jimmy and Martha and Lee, Bonnie and Maxine and Brother Blue with his finger popping soft shoe around Everett at the bar. Swizzle Stick in his vermouth, in his white linen suit jacket, like a man who should have just dismounted from a 5-gated walking horse, a smooth ride between tobacco rows. Pads in the shoulders to bulk him, conceal rib slats ridged as a Zydeco rub board, carcinoma sculpting its pulmonary tunnels. And where is my man, Roy Otis, fingering a page of Walcott or Soyinka in a corner under the Tiffany torchère with the librarian poets from Loyola, in spaghetti strap frocks and kitten heels, spangled bustiers and plumage of paradise flounched skirts. They flutter close. Rhinestone crucifixes winking in the cleavage. Roy Otis's head dips with a warm rumble of breath into the uncatalogued space between them. I won't confront him later. Who could change this need? I linger under the maple leaf shingle for who knows what. Feats can't fail me now. The Dirty Dozen chortle in a caterwaul of cornets, tumbler of tubas in Everett's trembling hand, as the white blonde and bleached blue-eyed couple sidle over and announce they've driven all the way from Little Rock since dawn to meet me. Who? Jarvis and Jolene, my would-be students from Fayetteville. Okay, but I'm from Seattle, I say. Y'all not CD? I'm not. Their call, my response, fast as a scat attack and fade. But I'll read good as any stand-in. Their call, no deal, they wheel on stiletto moccasins, stepping deep into the ozone days of Carrollton, the dozen played out in afternoon's decay. Then Roy Otis is behind me, Lee beaming at the crowd from a lemon gel glow over the tiny stage. You're first. Shook Leaf. I stumble toward the podium on fail-safe feet. Who else knows it would be years before I stop taking no for an answer.